Hey Sid, how you doing?
Hey Tim, I'm awesome. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. So they've let us back.
I know.
Oh well,
Round two.
yeah, we'll see how we get on with this one. So basically, following the last session, then we've had the opportunity to do another session on LinkedIn. It's a
hmm
great platform for us to be able to present ourselves. On the last session, Sid, we had a good chance to discuss some of the key reasons for the use of load balancing as a technology when it comes to taking workloads and applications, and they now needed to be sort of more available.
hmm
We had a couple of questions off the back of that, so we're going to try and cover those today, aren't we, Sid? Have a
Yeah, yeah,
little go at that. So, what's been going on since we last met? It's been same as working from home, I suppose.
yeah. It's been that. I mean, now at least with our business, we're starting to move back to the office now.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's obviously a big one, a big step given that it's the that date has been pushed back so much. So I
yeah.
know for those working in offices in our business, that's going to be a welcome change, but also it's going to be different to how it was before we left.
Definitely, yeah. We've seen some recommendations from lots of different angles, but our business has taken the steps to do that gradually, hasn't it, over the next couple of months, with a view that by the end of the year we should be, for those that work in an office, back to 100% occupancy. So it'll be
Yeah.
good to see how that goes. I'm also looking forward to getting my hair cut. The
Yeah,
barber's
so am
open again
I.
this weekend.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that as well. Got my
Can't wait for
appointment
that.
booked in on Monday.
Yeah, that'll be good. Anything you're up to coming in the next couple of weeks?
Well, 4th of July for the
Oh,
Americans
cool.
on. Oh, hopefully the flag is there as well. That's on Saturday. So just taking my daughter to see my mom and my grandmother. So that'll be fun. What about you?
Solid news, yeah. Same for me. Going to see how long it takes to get my hair cut. We'll see how that works. So something of interest, though, Sid. Obviously,
hmm
we're talking about these sort of back to normal life as we expect, but we have seen something shocking this week in the region of Leicester. Obviously, the first localized lockdown that's been
Yeah.
enforced. So all these plans can be put into place, but we're going to have to be obviously directed by the local environments that we're based, and our
Yeah.
customers are based, I suppose, aren't we, to be able to get back into those office locations. So really the question is still the same: where are people working from today? Are people back at their office locations yet? Are they still connecting from their homes? For some, has home become that permanent location now that they have to work from? I
Yeah.
have heard a couple of businesses discuss how the use of their office locations and the number and the size of locations is likely to reduce. We'll
Mm.
see how that has a knock-on effect with the type of industries that we know and we work. So, it's really now companies are going to have to start discussing or considering that hybrid, perhaps a different way of looking at hybrid now, the remote and the on-prem office locations. And
Yeah.
when they do that, how are people going to maintain that application experience? How are people going to consider this? What can we share?
Well, we do have a recent case study with a housing association, Keepmoat Homes. So they had this exact requirement. They had to make sure they wanted to have a VPN solution that was robust, scalable, was able to be deployed and accessed anywhere. Okay,
Hmm.
so they had a competitor's solution. At first, they found that the competitor solution wasn't working as well and it wasn't as flexible as it needed to be. So
Yeah.
they then brought in the current solution, which is ours, and they were able to effectively deploy it for all their staff, whether they're working on premise, whether they're working from remote, and they can access it anywhere they need to. And then the ability for them to scale and then to go into multiple locations was a key factor for them, which like would be for a lot of people, customers and users on the call, on this now.
Mm.
That just like we said last time, it still is present now because obviously the situation hasn't fully changed into a new
Hmm.
normal as such.
So that was an opportunity then that we've got a case study for. Keepmoat Homes, a big home builder in the UK,
Yeah,
and the sort of number of remote connections that they needed. It's also quite interesting to see that their requirement to sustain or maintain their cloud journey was something that they were looking at, the type of solution that they were considering continuing with, but needed to move to a solution that had that flexibility for the likes of Azure and AWS to be considered in the future. So perhaps some takeaways there if anyone wants to take a look at those case studies that are available, how it is that a load balancing technology enabled all of their users to continue with that remote connection. Be good to take a look at. So just want to grab a bit of time to talk to you about another key area right now, if that's all right, Sid, just for a couple of minutes. So seeing a lot of advice and a lot of discussions around the concerns for security of the remote connections. It was even a question that was raised on the last discussion that we had. So with thanks to Anton at FNZ, he raised a question. I'm going to repeat that now. Maybe we can cover it, Sid. How has Kemp maintained security as a main priority, even though servers are now being accessed from many home locations? So that was something we discussed last time, wasn't it, about the applications that are now being more accessible remotely. What security concerns could be addressed using a load balancing solution, Sid? Give us a little idea.
Okay, so you got a couple of things you need to bear in mind. One is that you want to have users to have the application be accessible from many places. You want to make sure that's secure as well. So we have geo load balancing, which is load balancing the DNS request. As you type in example.com, you want to be able to access a particular site depending on how close it is to yourself. Now, there is a little feature within that called DNS security, which says, are you the actual real DNS query, or are you someone trying to fake what's happening? DNS attacks are also quite common, and they're a gold mine for a lot of malicious actors. Then you also have the web application firewall, or layer 7 firewall. That's now going to be looking at, now that the connections come across, we want to make sure that it's all good to go once it's past the firewall. And then from there, we want the reverse proxy. So that's also going to be shielding.
Sid, you've said a couple of phrases here. Let me just back up a little bit. Right? Let me try and catch up. You said something at the beginning there that would do something for your DNZ. Geo? What? Just give us what does that stand for?
So geo it would be a Kemp terminology. So the bigger phrase is what we call global server load balancing. So the premise of that is, let's just say you have a site in Stoke-on-Trent, a site in Bracknell, and a site in New York City. And if you have customers that are based in Queens, in New York, they're going to go to the New York site. If you have a customer that's based in Leeds, they're going to go towards Stoke-on-Trent, where you are. And if they're based around Reading, they'll come to the Bracknell area.
Okay. So that's going to give you the connection. What now about the security? Is that where reverse proxy and web application firewalling come in? How do they add to the mix?
Correct. So with a reverse proxy, you're able to do a couple things on that. The first one is when someone's trying to log in, they'll be able to check with a reverse proxy to the authentication server saying, is this person who they are? Say they are, because people will try to spoof addresses to get in, and we'll be able to either reject them or to give them a pass in, number one. The layer 7 firewall, or the web application firewall, that part there is now a step further in, and it's in addition to any firewall that anyone has. It doesn't replace it, and it's looking out for all of the different permutations of an attack that's trying to come out. So a DDoS attack, or distributed denial service attack, or anything that's going to try to attack the application specifically. The web application firewall, the WAF, will be able to stop that from happening.
Okay, so all of these things you just mentioned, that sounds quite a lot of perhaps connections that are going to come in. What can the load balancer do with all of those connections that are coming in? You've got to secure them. You've got to make sure they're going to the right connection. What about all those new SSL connections that are going to be hitting these load balancers now?
Well, that's another thing you want to take into consideration, because the SSL traffic is the most resource-intensive set part of a connection. So what you want to have is a product that does SSL acceleration, which effectively is saying, take that big heavy burden, offload it somewhere, and then pass on the actual information to the service, which needs to be doing the processing. So instead of the service having to do it, there is an SSL acceleration on the load balancer that enables that to happen. Now, depending on the app, Some apps say, all right, give me the SSL resources. I'll do it myself on the server. And some applications will say to load balancer, you take care of it because I can't do it.
Right. Okay. So that's quite a big checklist then of things that can be utilized with a tool such as a load balancer. And I remember sort of discussing this last time, because as you go through the requirements, there's going to be quite a bit of management with that. Am I sort of right in thinking you'd want to be able to centralize that management as well?
Yeah, you definitely do. So if you have more than 2 load balancers, you want a sort of a management console that allows you to look at a lot of load balancers in one place. And not only that, you want to look at, okay, well, what if the customers may have third-party load balancers that could potentially be dialed in as well? You want to be able to have that flexibility to say, if you have a Kemp load balancer, for example, whether it's in the cloud, on premise, or anything like that, when you have third-party ones, let's say F5 or HA proxy, for example, how about we take all those, put it into one pane of glass, you can see how they're all doing.
Yeah, that's quite a powerful approach by the sounds of it.
Yeah,
I'm sure you're mentioning it because it's available. So it'll be good to see how we can put that together. So what we've just done here then, we've just sort of recapped on some of the things we discussed last time, which was making applications accessible for people that are now working from a remote location. I'm sure for many, when that happened, it was just supposed to be a short-term fix for a lot of people. That's now becoming something that is going to prolong it a little bit further for the majority of the rest of this year. And then, as we've seen in the likes of the different locations in the UK, if they then need to lock down them areas, these things are going to have to be brought back again. So any business that's considering these things, now's the time really to be looking at how they can combat a lot of those challenges using load balancing sort of technology that they can use. So hopefully what we've just done now is just gone over some of the other challenges that you might be facing, which is your security, and how it is that IT teams have really got to consider that level of security that will need to be in place for these hybrid on-prem work from home remote sort of locations. It is starting now to be the discussion. We're seeing this from a lot of our partners about that return. It's a phrase that I'm still trying to get used to, the return to work. It's more perhaps the return to a place of work, a return to the office. Work is something that we've perhaps all proved that we can do from some of the bizarrest locations, really. Some of us get some good locations to work from, some spare rooms, some converted spots at the end of the garden, that sort of thing. So there's lots of different challenges now that businesses need to consider, but that key requirement is keeping those connections secure and also keeping them robust and running. So what we'd like to do is invite people to really take a look at the product and give it a try. That can actually be accessed by the trial that we provide, which is kemp.ax/try. We really want people to be able to take access to the tool, see how it works, and take advantage of the product. So as we sort of finish off there, Sid, with just a little bit of a recap on some of the questions that we've raised, what have you got coming up in the next couple of weeks? I know I've got a continuation of webinars and things. I'm going to be doing a Bright Talk session on the 14th of July. That's going to be aimed at MSPs. Have you got anything like that coming up?
Yeah, so I have 2 webinars coming up. One with Parallels in Kemp about looking at deploying VDI solutions jointly. Another one with Celestics and Kemp as well, and also the bite-sized training that I do every month, which anyone who's on this is happy to jump on, and you can get more information around that.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good view, actually. Those 2-hour sessions where you show people how to use Kemp. So maybe what I'd like to do now is just check whether or not there's any sort of questions that have come from those that have taken a look at this session today. I think we tried that last time and we cut off a bit too early, so we didn't quite get all the questions in. So we'll just give it a couple of seconds to see whether or not the different feeds that we're broadcasting on have got any questions for us, and then we can answer some of those before we sort of finish off. So, all right, so I've got a question here that might be worth answering. Okay. Steve's asking about NLB in Azure and AWS. Does that Does that mean anything to you? How different would that be to Kemp?
Yeah, so you have to unpack that a bit. So Windows Network Load Balancing, or Windows NLB, that is a Microsoft legacy solution. Some people still use it, although they're.
I think you might be asking here about the native load balancers in Azure. That seems to be the question. So we know that Azure have got load balancers. We know that AWS have got load balancers.
Yep.
So I think the question is, how does Kemp compare to those?
Right. Okay. Then, so because of how that was brief, I thought it was on the
thought I'd double check.
So if we're looking at Azure and looking at AWS load balancing, we have documents online that give a like for like in terms of what we can do versus what they can't. But as a overall picture, one of the key reasons why Kemp is preferred over them is, one, that we have more flexibility in terms of how we load balance. Two, if you need to go from Azure to AWS or on-premise, you want to have something that stitched to all three. The load balancer is available in all three places. That's a key differentiator, because AWS can't go to Azure and vice versa due to how it works. But Kemp can do all three, which is
okay. No, that's some good tips there. So anybody that is looking at their journey to the cloud or the use of those public providers, there are options built within, but with the use of a solution, a load balancing third-party dedicated solution, you're able then to build a lot more into it. And as you've rightly said, we've got plenty of documentation to compare to that. So look forward to having those discussions. So I think that kind of rounds off what we were looking to discuss today, Sid. So really what we want to say to everybody that's joined us from the team at Kemp is remain safe. And we look forward to getting the chance to seeing you all again soon. Thanks for your time.
All right.
See you soon.